Okay, so we're here finally. A little bit late, but nonetheless, here it is. My top anime of 2021. These are the shows last year that I found the most enjoyable and blew me away in one way or another. Again, I probably shouldn't have said this, but this is just my top 10. Everyone has different tastes, so let me know which ones were your favorite. Making top lists of any kind that span a whole year can be pretty difficult for many reasons, but for me, avoiding recency bias is the most important. Comparing from the end of the year to all the way back in January or February means going back in my head and oftentimes the episodes themselves to re-experience why I fell in love with some of these shows. These are ranked, but the margins are razor thin in a lot of cases. So let's get right into it. It was between this and Beastars for my number one spot, but ultimately I had to give it to one of the more unique anime out there today. Dr. Stone. From episode 1 of season 1, I was hooked on this show. If not for the amazing art or the premise, then definitely for its emphasis on science. Chemistry was one of my favorite subjects in high school, so this show is right up my alley. Similar to Cells at Work, Dr. Stone is making science interesting through visualization and comedic relief. Not only that, you can tell there's proper research done for a lot of experiments Senku and the rest conduct. Some creative liberties are taken, obviously, but this is a work of fiction at the end of the day, with Senku seemingly having an answer for everything. Season 2 continued the progression of the Kingdom of Science and the war against the Sakasa Empire. If the previous season was about our characters learning the ropes of their new world, this one's about building off established technology to reach newer heights. It makes sense that there's less screen time for the building aspect compared to before. They don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, so it's easier to streamline certain processes that allow for more complex inventions much sooner. Scientific knowledge spreads increasingly, so the common person is able to contribute to Senku's plans more efficiently. Dr. Stone is an anime that you can really only compare to itself, and for me, as good as Season 2 was, I think it was a tad below Season 1 in terms of raw quality of story and plot. Perhaps it was the fact that the ultimate stakes aren't as high as Season 1 implied. Things seem to go right a lot of the time, and even when they go wrong, there are pretty quick fixes for them. That might be the security that comes with advancements in technology, however. One thing I did appreciate though was the amount of screen time and importance Chrome got. He's become one of my favorite characters for sure. So despite how I feel, there's no doubt how hyped I am for Season 3, as it seems like we're getting deeper into the main plot, looking for answers to questions that could change everything we know. Oh man, this one would be so much higher on my list if my experience with it wasn't littered with production issues and episode delays. You've probably guessed by now that I'm talking about 86. Yes, the final 2 episodes haven't aired yet, but no matter how they turn out, I would put this in my top 10 regardless. So the production issues were really the only gripe I had about this anime. This won't be a problem, obviously, for someone who watches it after it finishes airing in March, but I have to take into account everything about my experience with it to form my opinion. Having a delay every other week for several weeks definitely ruined the flow I felt watching the show normally for the majority of it. Okay, now that I'm done with all the negative stuff, let's talk a bit about what made this show so phenomenal and oftentimes tear-jerking. Another military series, but this one is truly focused on portraying the realities of warfare and the psychological toll it has on those in the front lines. When all you know is throwing your body in danger for the sake of a government that doesn't care about you, you tend to lose purpose and the desire for a life beyond your situation. Such is the fate of the 86, the group we follow throughout the season. The POV shifts we got for the first half between Lena and Shin added to the uniqueness of this show and provided us with essentially 2 storylines, one in the trenches and one behind the scenes. Sound in this show is also a big deal. Whether it's the OST and amazing opening and ending songs or the spatiality of certain dialogue, I loved and definitely recommend watching 86 with headphones on. I guess that's the bare minimum you can expect when you have Sawano Hiroyuki working on it. CGI was used a fair amount, but overall, it looks smooth and appealing. Perhaps it's easier to use it when dealing with mechs, but regardless, something that could have broken the series only further to make it memorable. With the final 2 episodes coming in the next few months, we can finish off this wonderful story, hopefully without me tearing up any more than I have. Now this is a show that's definitely spawned its own core fan base. It gives that Western feel, providing a nice change of pace from your usual Japanese-oriented anime. Megalobox. I never watched Hajime no Ippo, but I gotta say, Megalobox is probably the closest thing I'm ever gonna get to watching it, and that's something I hear from a lot of people and fans of Hajime no Ippo as well. That said, I feel like it didn't get its proper moment because of the sheer amount of good anime that came out in spring 2021. Despite that, I can definitely say this season was better than season 1 as far as storytelling was concerned. These episodes explore the dark side of PTSD, loss of life, and the guilt that comes with not being able to do anything for loved ones that pass away in your presence. Our MC, Joe, has to deal with a lot this season as he journeys across various communities in true nomadic fashion. Hoping to find answers, he witnesses systemic oppression and racism, learning about solidarity from people who become mentors. He carries these lessons with him as he comes to terms with the realities back home and seeks to revive his love for boxing. Corrupt corporations and the downsides of PEDs are sprinkled on top of a multi-layered cake of a story that truly expands what Megalobox is about. So I knew this anime was going to be popular, but I had no idea it would be at a magnitude like this. That's right, your favorite crybaby, Takemichi. In the West, Tokyo Revengers has reached a level of fame where people still talk about it and make content around it even though the anime has long since ended. When I went to Anime NYC, I saw so many Mikey and Draken cosplays that it blew my mind. Time travel shows are risky endeavors because things can get pretty messy. Whenever there's a new one, I often find myself comparing it to the best time travel anime in history, Steins Gate. While that was more science-focused, Tokyo Revengers aligns with the shonen genre a lot more. Initially, like Steins Gate, I didn't know how serious the repercussions of time travel were going to be for our MC, Takemichi. Soon enough though, we're shown that being able to go back in time to change the future will often go wrong. I think the butterfly effect is pretty central to making time travel a highly volatile pursuit, and Takemichi faces the brunt of the decisions he makes while in the past, or ones that he doesn't. The gang warfare between middle school students also reminded me a lot of Durarara, which holds a special place in my heart, as it was a show I grew up watching on Toonami around 2011. Overall, the character of Takemichi is one that I gotta say, a little disappointed in. I understand there's trauma for a normal guy put in a position like this. I mean, look at what it did to this guy. However, through 24 episodes, I felt like he barely got any characterization and never grew up to meet the demands of his situation. The desire was there, but oftentimes achieving a certain outcome to change the future meant relying on other characters doing the work for him, or just sheer luck. It was really only towards the final few episodes where he actually contributed to resolving conflicts. He's probably my third or fourth favorite character behind Mikey, Draken, and Baji, but maybe that'll change in season 2. Talk about a show that really puts you in a mood. I often found myself waiting until it was late at night to watch episodes of this show to mirror the atmosphere it invoked of being out at night in a city after all the hype had died down. Even if the episode had moments during the day, this show is just so chill. Taxi. So much would happen in one episode, but it never felt congested or rushed, and I really think Odd Taxi is the most underrated anime from last year. I'm not gonna lie, even several episodes in, I thought this show was going to be very episodic, and while I was perfectly fine with that, I did not expect in the slightest the twist we got at the end of the show. Odd Taxi is a very modern show. The characters engage in habits and bits of culture that we can see being prevalent in our own society. To that end, the animaloid characters act essentially like humans, and there's very little to none differentiation between the two. At the end of the day, this show also likely suffered from bad first impressions because the characters are animals and the art style looks a little geared towards a younger audience. If you stuck with it until the end, however, you know that with every episode, the stakes rose and, to put it frankly, shit got real. So many different characters and stories are told, with each of them being memorable. The way these plot lines are woven to bring together characters you'd never suspect were connected was masterful. If you're looking for an anime that you can kind of kick back and relax, but at the same time need to pay attention to understand the larger plot, then I definitely recommend checking out Odd Taxi. It's filled with mystery, and it has so much going for it. Now, this show had no business doing what it did right out the gate in episode 1. I was borderline traumatized, and definitely caught off guard to say the least. To Your Eternity. I don't think I've ever seen a story as unique as this. An entity sent down by a godlike being to learn about humanity, unable to die, morphing into the people it meets along the way. Fushi is an enigma. In anime, where there's a bunch of deaths, it's hard to become attached to characters after a certain point. You know, you get so used to seeing your favorite characters die that it makes it so that you don't want to invest yourself into inevitable sorrow. However, this show doesn't allow you to become apathetic. Characters die, new ones are introduced, and throughout, I found myself falling for them over and over. What does it mean to be human? This is a question Fushi slowly finds the answer to as he grows, quite literally, from an orb to a full-fledged functioning human at the end of season 1. The path to acquiring knowledge wasn't without grief and torment, however, and this takes a visible toll on our MC. I still think about this show sometimes at random moments. The characters, the story, the message that this show tried to send are immortalized, and while it was definitely depressing, a fair amount, it was worth it. I need season 2 or an announcement for it this year at least. You had to know this was going to be on the list, and high up at that. I feel like most people would put this as their top anime of last year, but believe it or not, there's 3 anime I enjoyed more than it. Regardless, this is the show that's nearing its conclusion, with part 2 of the final season airing currently. That's right. Attack on Titan, final season, part 1. From the jump, we're thrown into an intense situation. The story expands, showing us more about the world and complicating the story to levels we never imagined. Time has passed and war is imminent. Eren has plans, and he's nothing like he was in season 3, let alone the beginning of the series. The classic AOT soundtrack serves as a hype man for the insane fights we get to see involving titans of all shapes and sizes. Shout out to Hiroyuki Sawano again for always managing to make the hair on my arm stand up and give me goosebumps. This season really tests its viewers' morality as they're forced to take sides just as characters in the show do. You'll probably go into part 2 on one side, but don't be surprised if you are swayed by the endless twists and turns that are incoming. Alright, so what's the first anime that I thought deserved a place above Attack on Titan? Probably one you wouldn't expect. A show that truly spoke to me as a person and one I'll hold dear to my heart forever. Horimiya. This one is going to have some spoilers though, so be warned. I really wanted to make a whole video dissecting this show after it ended and the incredible characters, but I was kind of a wreck after finishing it. It was so emotional for me, and more often than not, I was left with tears or a heavy feeling in my chest after every episode. Miyamura is a character who speaks to me in a lot of ways. I seem to identify with depressives with low self-esteem, so I was instantly invested in his journey. His relationship with Hori is also something I cherish because it mirrors a relationship I've had before. It's not just because of the progression they had from unlikely friends to lovers, but also because of Hori herself. The sun to Miyamura's moon, Hori reminds me of a love lost, so it was extra reassuring and heartwarming to see the blossoming of their relationship. The relationship itself didn't only involve them, however. The way Miyamura was accepted into her family as one of their own was the cherry on top. Ultimately, it wasn't just their relationship that made me emotional, it was the way Miyamura grew for the sake of himself. His inner monologuing truly allowed us to understand all that he could never say to anyone else. A nice touch was getting to hear Hori's inner monologues too, which made her much more three-dimensional. Side characters in this show as well were given the spotlight a fair amount, and their issues also resonated within me. In fact, some of my favorite moments in the show came from side character stories. Yuki was definitely one of them. Romance anime can be trash. Super trash, let's be real. You might spend most of the season building up to a potential relationship, only for the couple to hug or hold hands at the end. Horimiya flips that on its head, as the two MCs get together fairly early on in the season, giving us plenty of time dedicated to showing how they operate within their relationship. With that comes mature conversations surrounding sex, trust, self-confidence, and much more. The dialogue in this show is one of the best features, as it really feels like people are having natural heart-to-heart conversations you'd have with your close friends. Ultimately, it's refreshing to see a romance that focuses on the peaks and valleys during a relationship while also providing a lot of content and emphasis on good friendships, a concept that's underrepresented in anime in my opinion. So I hope people give this the recognition it deserves, regardless of the discrepancies that it had with the manga. Alright, top 2. You'll probably be able to tell which one is my number 1 after this, but here goes. Quality after quality episode, this show blew me away with basically everything about it. That's right. Mushoka Tensei. I already made a whole video about season 1 earlier, so you guys can check it out here. But what I'll say is that Mushoka Tensei is super important to the isekai genre, and hopefully a lot of anime to come take lessons from its storytelling, world building, character development, and overall presentation. Now let's get to the number 1 spot. Alright, finally. Top 2, and it's not 2. My number 1 anime from 2021. Redo of Healer. Just kidding. ReZero Season 2 Part 2. So I came to find out recently that a lot of people actually dislike this series, and I was surprised to see that. Saying things like the story's disjointed or that Subaru is a bland main character who doesn't progress at all and is always crying. What they seem to forget is that he's just a normal guy thrown into an unforgiving world. His role and personality is very intentional. I know, I basically said all that criticism that I mentioned about Takemichi earlier, but it's only been 1 season with Tokyo Revengers, so I'm keeping an open mind for what he can become. Even so, Takemichi hasn't had to experience the pain of his own death over and over in the most gruesome ways like Subaru. The devastation from the curse placed on him culminates this season, and he's able to accept it and overcome it by tackling deep-rooted issues from his past. Where Subaru's combat skills lack, he makes up for with tenacity in his people skills. And if I'm being honest, he has to be possibly one of the most mentally resilient characters I've ever seen. Learning to rely on his friends is a big step for him this season as he grows out of his need to always protect Emilia and shoulder all the pain and suffering. This leads to a lot of development for Emilia as well, with her major character arc this season. Like many people, I wasn't a big fan of her in season 1 and preferred, who am I talking about again? Anyways, this season, she easily became one of my favorite characters in the series, and any show that can organically make you shift your opinion about a character is special. Gon is the scared girl who habitually learned to run away and only sought to be protected. Now, she's beginning to show some confidence in the face of the harshest conflicts to date. And as for the story, it expands greatly, revealing a multitude of secrets and lore surrounding Roswald and the witches. I also have to mention the presentation. 30-minute episodes with the opening song cut out means we got much more content than we expected to. In case you guys didn't know, this means that White Fox must have paid to cut into ad time in order to air it within the time slot week after week. ReZero, like most of the anime on this list, holds a special place in my heart, and I just hope White Fox can continue to deliver on this masterpiece of an adaptation for years to come. Okay, that was long. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it to this part of the video, I appreciate it, and let me know what your favorites from this past year were. Drop a like and hit that sub button too. I'll appreciate it greatly. But I'm out, and here's to another great year for anime.